So are you kind of more, I feel like every author is somewhere on that spectrum between pantser and plotter. And I'm assuming you're a little bit closer to pantser than plotter. Do you do any
Absolutely.
kind of plotting?
Let me talk about the sequel right now without giving too much detail on it. But
First of all,
I
none of the characters from book one are in it because they all died.
sure, that was my happy ending. Actually, well, book one of the things that just to digress completely, one of the things that I learned about writing when I was working with a development editor, um, I had so many points of view in the first versions of Summer of Luck. I had the counselor's point of view. I had, the three kids. It was just like crazy. I didn't really understand about having, especially in middle grade, having points of view that were clear and as minimal as they could be. And right now, I mean, not right now because this is the book that's being published, but it's the points of view of the three kids, and every so often the children of the ghost, the adult children, there will be points of view of them because the story's tied together like that. But there's no counselor's point of view, there's no camp director's point of view, there's no wife of the older son's point of view. I mean, I had this scene in my first draft where, this woman was at a society luncheon. And the idea of that scene was to show why she was pushing her husband to sell the warehouse where the carnival is, where it was a motivation thing, completely unnecessary, but it just took me, this is the kind of thing that happened as I've been on this writer's journey. I've learned what belongs and what doesn't. And, I kind of, I don't regret taking that scene out, but there's a number of other scenes that as I continued to make the book better and better, they didn't advance the story at all. There was a scene where the kids play tug of war, and it was a lot of fun. There was a scene where they play a baseball game, totally fun, but nothing happened that needed to be there, and so I had to axe those scenes. So
always painful. Do you just delete them or do you keep them someplace
oh,
where you can
I
maybe
keep
eventually
them.
repurpose them?
Don't worry, everything I've ever cut is in a file. I haven't looked at that file in a very long time, but so for for that book, like I said, it was a very long process. For this book, I'm technically on my first draft, although since my deadline is sooner than 20 years, I have to increase my speed, and I have to polish a little as I go. But I knew at the beginning of this book, I had an idea of why I wanted to write Summer of Luck 2, which is called Ready or Not. And I decided it was going to be from the point of view of Justin, the older boy. And I decided that there were a lot of things that are happening in our world today, our country, that were really bothering me. And I wanted to write a story about a kid who wasn't experiencing that kind of thing. But how does a kid learn to be okay when a lot of things aren't okay? I mean, and COVID-19 just popped up to help me along with that, because that's another kind of, very challenging situation in so many ways. And so I knew that's what I wanted to write about, but I didn't exactly know how the story was going to play out. But I just started writing, and here I am, probably like 2 or 3 chapters from the end. I know what's going to happen now. But I haven't written a very pivotal chapter at the end, and I'm not sure how it's gonna play out. I just know sort of that it's gonna play out, and I'll find out when I get there.
You don't have notes. It's just, let's find out what happens today. I hope it's great.
No, I have it all. I have it written out in the sense of like, you know, Justin does this and he talks to this, and, you know, and then this happens, and I have all these different things that the characters could say. I have all that written out, but I'm not going to use all of that. So how that ends up becoming a chapter, you know, that remains to be seen. It will. That's how I've always written, and it just. And you know, the other thing is that, especially in writing this book on a deadline, you know, I wrote this whole scene, and I knew what I wanted to happen, but I just couldn't express it. I couldn't think of the words about what was happening were all on the paper, but not in the way you want your book to be written. And I just was so stuck, and I was like, I'd say to my husband every night, I can't write. It turns out I can't write. And you know, I'm not good at this, and I'll never get, and he would say, just keep going. And I would, and the next night I would have my scene. So that happened enough that I've essentially learned to trust the process, you know, just go edit something else if it's not coming out, or, you know, read a book or whatever. And that's kind of how I write. I don't know if there's probably many other writers that are like that, but maybe not. I've definitely heard, I've listened to a lot of interviews with writers, and I've heard everything, you know, from kind of like seat of the pants to plotters, you know, who are very detailed. I've never taken I've never, you know, gone to writing school, so I'm not really sure how that's taught, but I kind of like, I just like, it works for me, so.
I frequently make the joke, and esteemed audience, regular esteemed audience members will have to forgive me because I've heard it before. But I always say that if I get 2 or 3 really successful authors in a row tell me they all do the same thing in the same way, then I'm done talking to authors. I'm just going to do what they're doing, and that's it. Hasn't happened yet. We'll see where we'll get there. Somewhere out there is somebody that writes every night in a coffin, and it's perfect for their process. And I haven't talked to them yet, but I'm sure that when they explain it to me, it'll make perfect sense for how their brain works. So
I have a theory, because I've heard enough. I heard an interview. In fact, it's one that you did with an author who said she wrote her book in 3 months or something like that, 3 to 6 months. And that woman has a gift. That woman has the writer's gift. My sister has the writer's gift. My sister's a novelist as well. And she teaches creative writing. She writes incredible short stories. She's 10 times the writer that I will ever be. She's a born writer. So shout out to
your sister. What is her name?
Her name is Susan Segal, and her book is called Aria, like the opera thing, Aria. And so check it out. And she also writes short stories, so you can find those by Googling her, I'm sure. But I'm the kind of writer that it doesn't come naturally. It takes a lot to come up with the kinds of things that end up being my final version of something. So, you know, I think we all have to compensate for what our given level of talent is. And if that works for me, then I'm fine with that, you know. I mean, really working with getting input from other writers and reading their stuff, you know, the critique partner thing has been just a huge part of my ability to learn, to see what a critique partner says, you know, how they interpret. Somebody that I trust says to me, you know, that really doesn't read Right. I'm not getting what you're trying to say. Or if they say, well, this person, why is he doing that? And I'm thinking to myself, well, don't you remember 3 chapters ago they did this? And clearly they don't remember that. So instead of saying to them, you don't remember this, I have to look at that and I have to figure that a middle grade kid, if an adult doesn't remember it, then maybe a middle grade kid isn't going to. So I gotta shuffle things around. I gotta strengthen that. I have to listen, and I have to not just think everything I write is like golden, because sometimes I think that, and then 3 weeks later I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't work at all, and I have to rewrite it. So that's just part of the process.
Yeah, if I haven't congratulated myself on writing my most brilliant novel yet, at least 3 times, but also despaired that I've lost all the talent I ever had, and this will ruin me at least 3 or 4 times, that I'm not having the full experience.
Totally. And just, the idea that I have to keep going, I have to keep at it, I have to never give up, because this is what I love and this is what I want to do. And it, however long it takes, just like with my first book, it just took what it took. And here I am, on the less than a month away of having this book in print. That's like, it's a miracle. I'm incredibly grateful. And I'm so glad that I didn't give up, that I didn't stop, or that I didn't abandon this book. I mean, people would say, not people, but I did hear from one other writer, not somebody that I was working with, but just kind of, the way that you connect with people online, you need to move on from that book. It's not going anywhere. And I was like, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep working to make it better so that it is a book that somebody will want to purchase, a publisher will want to purchase. So, and that's where I ended up going. So I absolutely, if anybody says to me, should I just give this whole thing up? I'd say, if it's what you want to do and you believe in this, your story, if it's a story you want to tell, keep going. Don't give up.
Well, I always think that if you can give up, go, be free. But most writers I know can't.
Well, exactly. I mean, if that was sort of my point, that if it's a story you feel like you have to tell, you're not going to want to give up. But if you do want to let it go, then that's your answer,